this is, people always think what's going on. I say we're getting a little behind the scenes view before the show starts. So I'm happy to have my newfound producer. We'll see how long he lasts. I don't usually keep him very long. Mr. Coleman, they don't usually stick around too long. So we'll see if he can keep up, see if consistent. I got my super producer early in the building. We got Mr. Coleman in the building. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We're gonna talk a little bit before we even get into all this serious stuff. We'll talk about we're gonna talk about that award you just, that induction you got. But that's a little bit behind the scenes. All right, Earl. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have been getting a behind the scenes preview of what goes on in the May Said podcast. But we are about to ready to go live. You ready to go live?
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, let's get this right. Let's do that mic check. All right. Microphone check. 1 2 1 2. Microphone check. 1 2
1 2 mic check.
Just tilt it up. There you go. There you go. Okay, y'all, we ready?
Mic check. 1 2 1 2.
Sound good. Y'all ready? Here we go, y'all. Here we go.
Y'all ready? We getting ready to do this. All right.
We did it again, baby. Another Black Ice production.
I'm starting to really like this on Monday nights. I'm really starting to enjoy this.
Here we go, 5, 4, 3, 2.
What's up, Chicago? What's up, world? It's your boy, Mace Jackson, and you are tuned in to the May Said podcast. I got it right this week. The May Said podcast live right here on Intellectual Radio. That's www.intellectualradio.com. We are an iHeartRadio station. Now, we're here every Monday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. You can watch us live on www.intellectualradio.com. You can get us on Facebook Live, or if I'm lucky, you can get the podcast tonight on iHeartRadio. If not, check it out tomorrow on iHeartRadio. You can get this podcast live. But we have got an action-packed show for you tonight, and I am excited. I have a super special guest in studio, so I want to encourage you all, if you feel like you are out there live, give us a call, 708-223-8953. We are streaming live. You can get us www.intellectualradio.com. You can also get us on Facebook Live. You can go to my Facebook page. That's www.facebook.com/MazeJack. That's MAZJAC. You can also hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Facebook. Let's get this social media thing rolling. We have got an action-packed show for you. What's in it for the black? It's not Mike. It's not Forks. It's black folks, man. Mike Bullock, I see you out there. What up to my boy Lloyd Kerr out there all the way from Bolingbrook? Are you watching in Houston, Lloyd? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I love about this internet. We go worldwide. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, live in the studio, I have a special guest. And so this special guest, you know what? It's one of these interesting scenarios where I actually met this gentleman. You know how you develop an affinity, or you meet someone and you get to know them a little bit and you like them. You really don't make the connection of who and what and all, connect all the dots. But I met this gentleman along on the campaign trail. And when I was in deep, dire need and distress of aid and assist as a black man, some brothers stepped up to give a brother some aid and assist, and this was one of those brothers. And during that time, I came to learn a lot more about this brother. Learned that he was a 16-inch softball star, right? So, Hall of Famer, which we're gonna talk about. But I don't even want to say more importantly, but it is more importantly. Percy Coleman is the father of Phillip Coleman, who you may, unless you've been under a rock, have heard of or have known. He was the young man who was in Chicago Police Department custody and was tased, dragged, and eventually found dead in his cell. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about Mr. Coleman softball. We're going to talk a lot about current events because this brother has some very interesting insights and perspectives on empowerment of black people, which you know if you watch and tune in, I'm all about what's in it for the black people. So we will be talking about all that. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, first of all, let's talk a little current affairs. So I don't know if you keep up with politics. Are you a political guy?
I would hope so. I'm the co-chair of the Republican Party in Chicago.
What? Wait, hold it. Time out. Hold it. Rewind. Can you say that for me again? You are what now?
I'm the co-chair of the Chicago Republican Party in Chicago.
Wait. Now I didn't even think. Okay, see, you gonna get me in trouble, man. They already hating on me. Now, first of all, where do you find a black Republican in Chicago? How did that happen? Tell me how that happened.
Well, some of us grew up in the political field, and it didn't take long to realize that a one-party system does not work for all the people in the community. So if you just keep on looking, we can go with two facts: what you know and what you believe. And what I believe and what I know is just two opposites. Because I know that one party don't work for us as black folk. And if we don't get some real education, it's going to continue to do what it's doing. Chicago is one of the worst racial situations you'll find in America today. And that's with a one-party rule. Democrats rule the city, Democrats rule the state. So if you got all the chaos and crisis that we got on the south and west sides of Chicago, where young black men, women, and children are dying every day because of two terrorist groups that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. Chicago gangs and the Chicago police. Ain't nothing in the drugstore killing us faster.
Well, damn. Way to kick off the show. All right. So, not only is he, now you're the co-chairman of the Cook County Democratic Party?
No, Republican, Chicago Republican Party.
Okay, all right. So now how big is the party? Are there more like you? Are there more black Republicans?
You got 50 wards, and I think we used to, when the strongest piece, when Don Beachman and I started, I think we had almost 15 to 16 black committeemen for each of the 15 out of the 50 wards.
Really?
Now I think we got about 8 to 10 of them left. 8, I think, is what the number is now.
And so, how has that worked out for you? How is it? So, do you see any difference between being a Republican and a Democrat and Republican, being outnumbered, kind of in the Republican Party? Do they pay attention to your issues and concerns?
Well, they pay attention when you act like you are still a grown person with a brain, and when you realize that one party don't want you and the other party don't need you. You have to get in position to do something to help your community yourself. That's what we do. That's what I do. Everything that I try to be involved in, whether it's law enforcement or the political agenda, it's about what can I do to help the black community. That's it.
All right, well then you are at the right spot, because that is my catchphrase. Now I don't even want to call it my catchphrase. I've tried to make it my life's motto to ask the question, not to be scared to ask what's in it for the black people. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the state of Illinois. Have you heard about this budget impasse we're going through?
Well, it's a budget impasse, but who does it affect the most? You got a couple of rich white folk arguing about this or that, but it impacts the black community. It's devastating to the black community. We got, I work for state corrections. You got facilities about to close because they haven't been paid. And they are still expected to let guys in and out of prison and have a place to stay and give them some guidance as to what their parole board orders say. But they're not being paid, so it's a problem. And the problem is that there's not enough black advocates, state reps or whatever you want to call them, making enough noise to make Madigan and Runner do something that's going to be meaningful to the black community.
So now, see, this is my question, this is my concern. Now, you know what, I'm glad that we can talk about state politics. And the reason I actually brought this up is I don't know if you heard that the comptroller, Leslie Munger, who, by the way, I will be interviewing tomorrow at 1:30 right here on Facebook Live. It won't be on Intellectual Radio, but you can get it on my Facebook page live. I'll be interviewing State Comptroller Leslie Munger live, and we'll be discussing her plan to put the state lawmakers in the same mix with everybody else. So now they got to wait for their paychecks the same way everybody else is. What do you think about that?
They'll probably come up with a budget.
I don't think they're going to come up with a budget. I'm going to tell you what they're going to come up with. They're going to come up with an interest-free loan program for the state reps. There's going to be some bank that is going to front them their money, right? There's going to be a bank that's going to front them the money so that they can hold out as long as they don't have to pay. See, that paycheck motivates a lot of people, so they're going to do whatever they need to do to protect it. Mark my words, if she slows up their paychecks and they wait more than 3 months, you mark my words, you heard it right here. There will be a loan program by a bank that will give the legislators their money until the budget impasse is resolved. Bet me.
Well, I'm not going to bet you because, I mean, there are strange bedfellows everywhere, but with ratings, Chicago ratings and the state ratings, to me, some bank would have to be really hooked up to give them that loan.
So I guess we'll have
Might be another federal investigation.
I guess we'll have to watch that. You heard it right here on the May Said Radio Show and podcast. So do you think that will motivate, though? Do you think that Comptroller Munger's actions will motivate legislators to pass a budget, or do you think they're going to wait until November?
I think this thing is going to go until Madigan and Runner come to some kind of accord with Cullington, and until they come to something that all three of those guys agree on, they're going to keep going back with the muscle job and who's got the biggest cojones.
And where does that leave the black people is all I really want to understand.
Suffering and surviving the best way they can as we normally do.
Because when it's a recession for them, it's a depression for us. All right, you are tuned into the May Said podcast. I'm getting it down. The May Said podcast. And live in studio, I have Mr. Percy Coleman. So, Mr. Coleman, I think I was scrolling through Facebook yesterday, and Sunday is my day to kind of chill out and look and see what everybody's doing. And I was scrolling through Facebook, and I follow your son, Jeff, right? So I follow your son, Jeff, on Facebook, and I see this post, and he's congratulating you for being a part you were inducted into the 16-inch softball Hall of Fame. Is that true?
Absolutely.
All right, now tell me about that. Tell me about this. Because you know what? I saw something a long time ago on Channel 11 about 16-inch softball in Chicago. And every once in a while, I got a good friend named John Joyner who played. I got a friend, my buddy Patrick Thompson, he plays. And they used to play for these jackets or whatever, and they thought it was like a big deal. Explain to me the phenomenon of 16-inch softball in Chicago and Illinois. What makes it so unique here?
Because of the size of the ball and the camaraderie that you get in dealing with that game. But to Chicago, to some of the teams in Chicago in the north areas, it's just a competitive sport. That we started out playing with hands, no gloves, and now it's moved over into the glove thing. There was two reasons for that. The older players could last longer, and some of those guys who never had good hands could complete the process by staying in the game. But softball on the south and west sides of Chicago has always been not only a challenge but an opportunity. When we play softball, I don't care whether we go into 14th and Tripp or we on 75th and Jeffrey. We never had a shooting. We never had a drive-by. We never had a fight between these two competitors from the south and west side. We bring 4 or 5 teams from each area. And we know that through the week they connected one way or another to something.
Okay.
But
Now, when you say connected to something, tell me what you mean.
well,
Like, who's in it? Who plays in this 16-inch softball league? Is this the Ricky Hendon stuff too?
Oh yeah, Ricky got into it seriously. We used to work with Ricky and one of the guys that was an alderman on the west side when we pulled together what we call the Chicago Major Sports Association. We developed that because the ASA and the USSSA was run by and operated by whites.
Okay.
So we started getting the competitive guys together from the south and west side, and we formed our own organization. Then we were allowed to go to the ASA and the USSSA and compete with them. And mine being competitive as I am from 43rd and Princeton with the Flamingos. Flamingos, ladies and gentlemen, is the only black team to win 3 national tournaments. Remember that now. I told it to you, and it's the truth. That's why they inducted me as the manager into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, you wasn't there. You was inducted as a manager. Man, I thought you was a player.
Oh, slow down. Read the Bible. Wait a minute.
I thought you
read
was
the Bible, brother. I'm the best pitcher in the world.
You the best.
I'm the only pitcher in softball, 16-inch softball with a curveball. They just be almost breaking their wrist trying to hit that thing as it goes around the plate and drops on the dime. They, north and south, they know my name. Percy Coleman is what they call me, but Bobo is my name in this game.
Okay, Bobo. All right, so if y'all, you are tuned into the May Said podcast, and I'm sitting, right now we're going to call him Bobo, because he is in his, we giving him his Hall of Fame props. Did they give you a jacket or something for that?
You win jackets, you win.
Where's your Hall of Fame jacket, man? You came to my show, you didn't bring your Hall of Fame jacket?
No, we don't have the development of Hall of Fame. We get the rings have been ordered. And when you're trying to take care of 32 guys and all of them ain't working, it's hard to get the rings and the jackets at the same time. So we working on it.
Now, how do you finance this thing? How's it? I mean,
we used to have the radio stations was part of our sponsorship. The Chicago Defender was part of our sponsorship. They used to do stories on us, and I'm talking to them now about a black inner city sports hall of fame or something that we can recognize more of our guys, because all of our guys can't get recognized in the regular citywide hall of fame because a lot of them didn't play in the major competition, but they played for years in the local competition on the south and west sides of Chicago. So we got some folks that can still be honored if we can put something together for ourselves. So I'm still looking at that possibility.
Okay, so now what would you need to do that? What I mean,
sponsorship, and some commitment from the players themselves to put some skin in the game. Ain't nothing free, and just waiting on somebody to take care of you ain't gonna get it done.
Ah, see, you must be from a different generation, man. Something seems like something's going on. The broadcast has stopped, so Anthony, why don't you get that going back on? Okay, all right. So, Mr. Coleman, as a Hall of Fame inductee, what does that? What are the? Let me back up. How many people play in this league?
Oh man, you talking about thousands of people across the city.
Really?
Up on Peterson Avenue, as far as Kankakee, we play in Prescott, Arizona. We played in Nevada. We play everywhere.
So now you do have a glove, or you don't have a glove?
Well, they have gloves now. Majority.
Well, 16-inch. That's the big ball.
That's right.
So how big is the glove? About this big?
You know, it's a big. What they call it, a big daddy. It's not like it's about the same ball glove that they use in baseball.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
But you'd have to go out and see this, because this is like trying to tell you about Michelangelo.
Now, where would I see him? Where can I see this? Where do they play most of the games? Is this something I can see on come out on a Saturday? I think is it something
Sundays, mostly Sundays. The Sunday Best League is the major one now.
And where is it at?
That's at 55th in Washington Park.
Okay, and they out there, and
on
it's
Sunday.
a good time.
Ricky Hendon be out there too.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it a good time?
Oh, you be there all day. They started. The CTA league starts, I think, at 8 o'clock in the morning. Then we start around 11 or 12.
Okay.
And then you get out of there about 7, 8 o'clock after they get through beer drinking and telling about how it used to be. They be there for all day.
Well, you're going to have to invite me on out there. We're going to have to do a May Said broadcast from out there. get people to know about it. I'm gonna be going around all summer just checking out things at a Chicago and broadcasting live. So let me know, and I'm gonna have you invite me over. All right, we are gonna take a break, and after we take this break, we are gonna come back and we are gonna talk to Mr. Coleman about the tragedy that occurred, the settlement, and what do we do next about this police violence, as well as this black-on-black violence. I hate to use that term. So this violence that's in our communities. You are tuned into the May Said podcast live at www.intellectualradio.com. We are an iHeart radio station. Give us a call, 708-223-8953. Tweet us. Give me a tweet at MazJack. That's MazJC. We're broadcasting live on Facebook too. Let me know you're out there. All right. Peace. No. Y'all are getting a behind the scenes look while we take a break. I gotta stretch.
And I become a party. 4 hours later, still serving you like a
I don't understand. We have a new man. I mean, we have a new police superintendent.
I'll do the work you just did.
Private McCarthy. All this crap still happening. I'm about to roll.
They got to make some changes, man. And
But you know,
did a great job.
it can be fixed if they allow the folks that it's affecting to have some input.
these cats are making their own decisions once they get in the street.
Absolutely.
They don't care who the mayor is. They don't care who the superintendent is.
Now I just told that to Mayor Romney, man, exactly what you said. They don't care.
They don't care.
But if you have the right kind of overseers, yes, they care when you got the right kind of folks out there watching. People that ain't gonna take no bribe, people that ain't gonna take no stuff. People that's working for the pride and the job.
You have someone who's been doing this for 20 years. You can't just say stop.
Oh, yes you can. It's called jail. Do you know that this is the first year that they have started convicting people?
And you know what? And you wonder why crime's so high.
Oh yeah.
You wonder why so many of us
That's why when I talk, I don't talk just about the police
Like what happened when you was
conduct. That's right. I talk about the game.
That's retaliation.
See, but
You train police too.
oh man,
You about to roll, bro. Trust me, I got this. I got this. Let Maze do the Maze. Let the man. Now look, you are watching behind the scenes live. Look, I don't go to. I'm gonna tell my joke. You know. Let me tell you. Did you ever hear that joke about what's his name? Say when Chris Rock, when somebody try and steal his show, he be like, "Hey, this ain't to you, Earl. So don't take no offense." But he say, I don't come to your mama job slapping dicks out her mouth, do I? Right? That is a behind the scenes. You are tuned into the May Said Radio. Let's do that again. Let's rewind. All right. You are tuned into the May Said podcast. You have been getting some live behind the scenes imagery and views. I hope you were not watching with the kids. All right, that's all right, because Earl was doing my job. You know what I'm saying? He was trying to take my slot. Y'all know I'm possessive about the mic. Hey, speaking of that, Earl, I will not be here next Monday. So everybody know that I will not be in. We'll be taking a break and then we'll be coming back and we are going to get way down deep into it. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, live in studio I have with me Mr. Mr. Percy Coleman. Now, Mr. Coleman, we are going to get into a serious subject, and I want you, at any point, if you feel like that I have gone too far, you want to stop the conversation, and I'm happy to stop, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking about his Hall of Fame status, but we also know Mr. Coleman for a tragedy that occurred in his life and that has been all over the news in Chicago. As recently as last week, the Chicago City Council announced a settlement, or voted to approve a settlement of $4.95 million to Mr. Coleman and his family for the loss of his son, Phillip Coleman. There's been a lot of news stories, etc. but what we wanted to do was have Mr. Coleman here and give us a real and true account of actually what happened. Kind of just really, I just want you to tell us your story. Tell us what happened. Tell us where we're at now, and then where do we go from here, and how can we be supportive of your family, and how do we take the learnings from what happened to improve our conditions. You know, I don't think it's all the police, but I do think we got some issues. So, and then also I think while you're there, and I think to add some perspective, because you know what, let me just say this. Let me just add to say one thing, because this was the question that I did not understand, and I want you to make sure you touch on this. To add some perspective, Mr. Coleman is a seasoned law enforcement professional at every level, professional, top of the game. And the one thing I did not understand when this whole thing happened was why, knowing the Chicago police, and I know hindsight is 2020, and this is not, why did you call the police to get your son? And I think I just love for you to tell your story.
Well, everybody knows that when you have a problem, one of the first groups that you think of is Chicago police coming to help you aid and assist, because they're supposed to be hired to serve and protect. My son had a mental breakdown. It was obvious to everybody except the policeman that showed up on our block that night. He had already had an episode with my wife, which I was not aware of when I drove home. And ambulance and police cars had blocked off the street. And once I made contact with my son, it was very obvious that he needed some help that I couldn't give him. And when I tried to approach the Chicago police and the ambulance driver about helping my son, because I told him, I think he's losing his mind. And instead of coming out to see what they could do to assist me, and if they'd had any community policing training, they would have known how to assist me. Because most of the times, policemen come into the African American communities, they say we don't want to help them. We're not the first to come up with suggestions as to how to solve a problem. And when I suggested to the white shirt, white man that my son needed to go to Jackson Park Hospital to get some mental evaluation, he told me my son spit on a policeman, and they don't do hospitals, they do jail. And even after I helped put my son in the wagon, that was the last time I saw him alive. And Mays earlier, you had said that he died in jail. He didn't die in jail. He was unconscious at jail before they took him to Roseland Hospital. They have never taken him to the Jackson Park Hospital, like I said. And they lied from day one. When I got to that building that night after I went to see my wife at the hospital, I stayed there till almost 4:30 in the morning. The one white detective that I was talking to upstairs and the state's attorney, I was telling them that could they help me get my son out of that lockup to go to the Jackson Park Hospital, or could they render me a courtesy since I'm in law enforcement and I used to work at that station. I used to train Chicago cops at Jackson Park Academy, and I used to work with the 111th Street community group. They wouldn't have none of it. Couldn't get back to see him or nothing. Told me he was resting peacefully. Then the detective told me the best thing I could do, Coleman, because I don't want to interfere with the watch commander, because he's made a decision, is go to 26th Street to the next day, which would have been Thursday, and bond him out, take him to the hospital myself. That's the last thing I got from him. They said they couldn't help me no other way. I go to 26th in California the next day, he never shows up. I wait for 2 hearings, 2 callings, he never showed up. Then I went to the lady, the bailiff, and asked her, why wasn't my son on it? She said, there's no Phillip Coleman assigned here today. Then my son, my older son, Jeffrey Coleman's friend, Dennis Harris, called me and told me to get back out to 111th Street. He said, I'm here listening to the police laughing and talking about Phillip, and they got his pictures strode all over the desk up here. They say, I can't see him. He said, something's wrong up here, Coleman, get up here. So I left 26 in California, fought that traffic, got back out to 111th Street, and then when I walked in, I told him I wanted to see my son. First, they brought out one white commander. He said, well, who are you? I showed him all my credentials, and I said, I need to see my son. He said, well, your son is not here, but you can, Friday, you can go over on Harrison Street, and he'll be at court over there. He didn't go to the other court today. I said, Harrison Street. So then I started, my little 39th Street started coming out. I got loud. And I told him that if he did not allow me to see my son, that I would go get the biggest politician I could find and come back in there and walk back there and see him. So then the second white shirt come out, the white guy. And he said, Mr. Coleman, I see your credentials, everything's in order. Your son is not here. What do you mean he's not there? I said, all his pictures is right there on the front desk there. That's what you guys are laughing about. He said, no, he fought us this morning. He's over at the Rosen Hospital. I said, now if I go over there, they're going to tell me I can't see him? No, I'm going to call the officers and tell them you're coming. So I went over to Rosen. That was at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I saw my son on a gurney in the room, and I didn't understand what that respirator was doing then, but I could hear it. But he never moved from the time I walked in there until I'm a diabetic. Around about 7 o'clock, I started feeling faint. I needed to eat. I walked out of the Rosen Hospital about to go across the street and get me something to eat. And something made me turn around. I'm telling you, if y'all don't believe in God, you need to start, because I'm telling you, something told me to turn around and go back to that hospital. And as I went back and got into the parking lot, Chicago cop come out talking about he was looking for me. Looking for me for what? He said, your son is in a cold blue. So then I go in. Now they won't let me go back in the same area I've been in all day. They shuffle me off to a room where hospital priests come in, nurses, and the doctors. I've been there, seen this, done that. I know what the hell this is. I know why you coming here. Then they tell me that he died after this cold blue. This is at 7-something at night. The next day in the newspaper said he died at 5:30 p.m. So I went and got a lawyer. In fact, I want to thank the young lady, and I'm not going to set you out, that kissed me on my jaw, hugged me around my neck, and told me to get a lawyer while I was in the hospital, while that respirator was going. So get you a lawyer. So I know from all the years that I've been involved in hospitals, I started off at St. Luke's Hospital, St. Luke's Presbyterian, and I've been around law enforcement and hospitals all my life. If you want to fool me about something, those are not the two areas you want to fool me in, because I know what I'm talking about. They had me signing a bunch of papers so that they could treat Phillip, and I said, well, if I'm just now signing these papers, how did you all treat him up to now? So anyway, that's another story. I'll deal with that later, because I'm not through. And these little kibbles and bits that we agreed to take, the only reason I didn't go and wait for court was because my wife couldn't take it no more. Now you talking about a strong black woman, that's what she is.
So let me stop right there. But when you say your wife couldn't take it no more, can you explain that for me?
She didn't want to go to court. This is 3 going on 4 years later. She didn't want to go through all that again. I mean, she was the one that caught the bug of what was going on with Phillip that night. And she got in a lot of static with him because she told him she was finna call me to come home. And that just tipped it off. So she didn't want to go through that again. And she told me she wasn't going to go through it again. And that's who I take my marching orders from. So we settled.
Whew. All right. So there's a couple things that stick out to me, but the one thing that sticks out to me the most is what happened to the police courtesy?
Not only what happened to the police courtesy, what happened to the serve and protect piece? Serve is the first word in their motto. There was no service extended to us that night. And I want to say it was because there was white policemen out there, but then I'd be lying. There was black folks out there. There was 2 black officers that pulled their guns on my son, was going to shoot him because he wouldn't follow their instructions. I had to throw my arms up in front of them people and stand in front of them. I said, "You're not going to shoot my son. If he don't understand what the heck you saying, how can he follow your instructions?" Female black and a female officer. Me and my neighbor took my son down on the ground. He did not fight because he was strong enough if he wanted to. And he constantly spitting blood out of his mouth, spitting it on the side because I had my arms on and leg on it. This police officer, female, said he was trying to spit on her. I said, "Ma'am, I'm down here in his face. He ain't spitting on me. How's he spitting up there to you? You standing up with a gun pointing at him." And then she told that to her little commander when he showed up, and that's where he got the statement about no hospitals, jails, because he spit on an officer. He never spit on him. And the one thing about the service, when you come to a community and somebody's injured, common lay talk. What is the first place that he got to go before he go to a police lockup? He got to go to a hospital. He's got to be treated. He's bleeding from his hands and his mouth. Now, the police didn't do that to him. He did that in the struggle with my wife and some kind of a fence in one of my neighbors' yard that he climbed over that was barbed wire. So there's a lot that has not been discussed with this settlement, but I at least had a chance to talk to the mayor about him having a son and me having a son, and I think that touched off a great conversation between us, and I'm hoping we can work out some things. But I told him, changing positions does not change conditions. The Chicago Police Department has got to do some dramatic changes to straighten out this mess that they're in, and they cannot do it themselves. We got to have a paid, elected oversight, civilian commission over the Chicago Police Department. It's got to be somebody over them that can call a grand jury, do investigations, the whole 9 yards. And there's got to be folks that know what the heck they're doing. And I know such folks, and that's what I presented to the mayor.
Now let me back up. I want to touch on the mayor's piece of this. And I want to touch on it because what role or responsibility do you think that the mayor played in this situation? And what did he do good? What did he do right? And what could he have done better in your estimation?
Well, one of the things I think that's happened, and I think the gentleman over there says, related to it earlier.
Are you trying to give Earl my job again, man?
This has been going on for years, for decades. This ain't nothing new. But to black folks, when one of our black members of our community said that the police will lie, the police will do a false police report, they'll make a false allegation against me. We didn't believe them. Because you can hang they're an ex-gang member, they're ex-convict, they're ex-this, they're ex-offender. So who do you believe? The people who are here to protect and serve you, the public servants that's putting their lives on the line every day for you, for your community? Well, we don't want nobody else killing nobody in our community for us.
I heard that. I don't mean to laugh. So to the point, what role did the mayor play in this?
Well, again, the mayor has been the mayor. This is his second term.
Okay.
Chicago police don't care who the mayor is. Chicago police don't care who the police chief is. They change them often. But those guys who work with Burge, ask this new chief the question. He said he's been around 28 years, and you've never seen anything going wrong in the police department? You've been there 28 years? I only trained the police for about 3 years, and I saw everything. I know about guns in your locker, so when you shoot somebody accidentally on purpose, you go have your friend bring a gun. They call it a drop gun. So when I start telling it, I'm going to tell everything I know. So the mayor could not have done any more than where he is right now. He's got a heck of a job, and I told him so. If you're going to change this police department, you got to have some troops helping you inside and outside the police department. Your new chief can help you inside. This advisory board and commission that I'm telling you about can help you outside, because we'll have eyes and boots in the street. We can do something with both of the terrorist groups in Chicago right now. We can do something with the Chicago gangs. We can do something with the Chicago police. We did this in CHA. CHA and the residents and the police working in partnership in 9 years got off the most troubled housing list in the United States, which a list they were on for 50 years.
Now back up. Now, what experience do you have on that? How you know?
I was a commander of community policing at Chicago Housing Police. The people who trained me at Chicago Housing Police was a Leroy O'Shea, who was an ex-Chicago cop that they would not take community policing from him for, so he quit and come over to CHA. He developed one of the most outstanding pieces out. Charles Ramsey, who they just brought back, who had left Chicago to go be a chief somewhere else because he knew he couldn't get it done here. So you have to know about the cultures that you're dealing with, the gang culture and the police culture. And you got to put a team together that can deal with them effectively. We got some ex-offenders that can get on a program with me and help me, and we got ex-policemen that want to help now. If it don't be for some of the policemen that are working for Chicago right now, calling me, giving me this information about the video about my son, I wouldn't have known about the video. Telling me about what the police did wrong that night. All the stuff that they did, but they can't speak up and they can't step up because it's a career killer. You talk about one of them policemen and they'll bury you somewhere and take your career from you. But if we do this right with a paid elected oversight commission of civilians, not no volunteer group, paid, we can do the same thing that you're trying to do with Emperor. We can do the same thing that the police will know we're serious. The gangs will know we're serious. And if we can get some of the black media helping us, like we've got the Defender, I've already picked up on something with Chicago State for the June 11th, and I'm going to get back to you guys about this because I want that covered. If you see us put this thing together, I was telling Anthony about you save elephants, you save Leo the lion, you save puppies, you save everything but Negroes. Why don't we save ourselves? What I'm going with my son's foundation, I'm talking, I want 1,000 preachers from the west side of Chicago.
Oh, the
I want
preachers.
1,000 preachers from the south side
You
of
know it's
Chicago.
1,000 of them too.
And with that, they're going to help me get 1 million registered voters so we can start taking care of ourselves and our business, whether it's in Springfield or the city. And we only want a $30 a year membership. They ain't got to change nothing. They ain't got to stop going to the boat. They don't have to stop doing none of the stuff that they do normally. But when you see what we can do once we organize and see Black Wall Street don't have to be dead. We already know what our history is.
Shout out to Mark Allen, Black Wall Street.
See, if we can do this thing right, the gangs and the police will be straightened out in less than 6 to 8 months. And that's a guaranteed piece. Because CHA residents, I'm going to bring them back to the table. Because some of them that used to be just activists are now presidents of those various CHA developments. And I'm telling you, if it don't be for those CHA residents and the black CERT security that we hired on our own, we never would have got to deal with them. And you'd be surprised how many gang members want out. You'd be surprised how many gang members don't want their brothers and sisters coming up in the same stuff that they came up in. And you'd be surprised how many black policemen will step up if they know there's a whistleblower system in place that I'm talking about now.
Well, let me just say this, because for real, it's hard work trying to speak up for black folks, because boy, they'll whoop you hard. The white folks will whoop you hard, and black folks will get the ducking, man. Trust me, I'm telling you, they're ducking right now.
But see, if we didn't have to depend on each other, eventually you learn that. Now, some of us are hard-headed, slow learners. Some of us got a disease called selective amnesia. We forget what we want to forget. But don't forget this. Chicago is in crisis and turmoil. It's been run by the Democrats for 60 years. No two-party system. And these dumb Republicans, you got to put them in their place because they just as crazy. But I understand. One party don't want us. The other party don't need us. So we need to be in both parties. Because that's the only way you get the information up front as to what's going on.
Let me tell you, that right there, black people, wake up. You know,
They sleep in giants.
black people, they got you confused. They got us all mixed up. They got us fighting over D and the R, and guess what? at the end of the day, two rich white boys are gonna make a deal. Where will we be at the end of this thing? Now, Brother Coleman, tell me, because we only got a few minutes left. Tell me what's next. What's next for you and your family? What can we expect? Can we expect that now that they've settled with you that you're going to kind of fade off into the sunset? You're going to be on the team? Can we expect to see you standing up behind at all the press conferences now? You're going to get a fancy job? And well, tell me what's going on.
What we're going to do, we're going to start talking about our collective power, not permission. We don't need permission from Runner. We don't need permission from Madigan. We can make our own decisions with our own money in this statewide membership. Let's save our own community ourselves. I'm going to make the preachers be the front of this, since the church is the first place we're
Preachers
gonna start.
again?
Yeah, absolutely.
The
See,
preachers?
you got 6 pillars that you can't get away from. Spiritually, legally, so that they don't think we Black Panthers and start doing dumb stuff.
You're right, because
Socially,
they sure will kill you.
Economically, educationally, and politically. If we just realize and you get in where you fit in with those 6 pillars, we straight. But you know you gotta have votes and you know you gotta have money. Now this little simple solution to our problem: $1 million, $30 a year membership, and you ain't gotta stop doing nothing you do normally. Just watch us and wait for us to do something wrong.
Ooh, cut me in. I'm in. $30 a year, y'all. $30 a year. I just wonder. I wonder how much would you pay for your own liberation? How much would you be willing to invest in your own freedom? Because freedom ain't free. It's just not. Right? It's just not. All right. What else you got for me? So, what else we got?
I think it's June 11th. The Chicago Defender is working with us to get some things in order. I've spoken to some of the Black preachers. I've spoken to people like Meeks. I've spoken to Corey Brooks. I've spoken to my pastor from Bellevue Church, Dr. Fullwood, and we're putting some things together to start this off. They're going to take care of the religious folks. I'm going to reach out to the community and the police, law enforcement. I know you haven't heard the name Afro-American Policeman League in years.
Yeah,
But
Renaud
Robinson, Pat Hills, Sappho, they gave up careers working for Black professionals for many of them to be where they are today. But why don't we still have the Black Law Enforcement Association? Why are you joining the FOP? The FOP don't care nothing about you. The FOP is the one that made this contract where it makes certain cops 007. They can kill at will and get away with it.
Back up, explain that.
They got a contract that you can't do anything to them. They have a contract that if you haven't done anything to them about a major discrepancy within the first 3 to 5 years, it comes off their record. I ain't never heard of nothing so sinister and stupid in my life. And who signs off on that? The mayor and the city council, because they don't understand that part of it. And see, the first thing to solve a problem, you got to understand that you don't understand the problem. The mayor cannot solve this police problem from his seat. He's going to have this new guy that he's got inside, Eddie Johnson, and he's going to have Percy Coleman and his outside raiders outside helping him out. Because we're going to help him with the gangs, and we're going to help with the police, and we're going to keep them both straight legally. We got the tools to do it with, and CHA is the only successful community policing holistic program ever offered up. Midnight basketball, 16-inch softball. Tiger Wood gave us golf clubs and training periods at different golf courses out here on 127th Street. We can put all that back together, and for those who don't play sports, we gave them jobs. Videotaping at the ballpark, doing stories. The Defender ran their stories once a week.